So like when we would do ADR, fixing the dialogue, I was watching it and all of a sudden there'd be no scene. And I go, what's that? And he goes, oh yeah, that's the CGI stuff. And I go, oh, what's happening? Well, we don't know yet.
First, you may have seen her in Night of the Comet, Weekend at Bernie's, and of course, The Last Starfighter. Please welcome Catherine Mary Stewart. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And you might have seen him in Halloween 2, Jaws Revenge, and of course, also The Last Starfighter. Please welcome Lance Guest.
So yesterday I didn't sit down because all of a sudden everybody disappeared. Oh, really? Are you okay?
I can stand.
Okay, apparently we're going to be standing, so that works. Yep.
Remember? Because when I went down here, I couldn't see anybody.
I'll flick that up.
Yeah. Yours? This is mine.
That's
There we go. I couldn't see anybody when I sat down. So I'm standing up.
Though I got to say, this is a little better because I couldn't see Kelly through you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I know, she's so wide.
Yeah, well,
Kelly's so
Kelly's a little shorter.
Yeah, she's little.
So how are you guys enjoying the con?
It's really fun. I mean, it's really great bunch of people. Lots of people. We never have don't have
any downtime, which is really wonderful. I mean, and everybody's so great. And I personally love the space. It's massive, so you don't feel like you're just compressed into this little thing. And I also like the fact that I'm not freezing to death.
That's good.
I freeze to death in these conventions. I have layers of things. By the time, I get pictures taken at the end of the day, I'm in like this big overcoat. And it's usually so cold. So that very much.
In a place like this, you show up. I mean, I show up with a bag of shorts and Hawaiian shirts, and it's like, it's going to be hot, right? Like where I left, no.
Yeah.
So today, I'm going to call today the first day of fall. I don't know. What do you think?
It's gorgeous outside.
That's what's so great about this place.
Yeah.
LA, it's like, it'll be 100 degrees until November.
Yeah.
And then it drops to 95.
Yeah. In the winter.
So this time is for you guys. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. Tom's going to come along with the microphone. I have a couple warm-ups. So while he's making his way over to you, I do have to ask you guys, what were the film, shows, or other works that inspired you to enter the field of acting?
Well,
first?
I'll go first, okay. Yeah. Honestly, I always sort of like to perform, put it that way, but I really got into dancing, seriously, into dance. And when I graduated from high school, I went to this performing arts school in London, England, that was primarily dance, but they also did acting. Of course, I did acting in high school and all that other stuff. Not your classic academic here. But focused on dance, and I happened to go to a dance audition for this rock musical feature film, and the director pulled me out of the dance. It was a cattle call dance audition. There had to be 200 dancers there. He pulled me out, and he asked me if I could act, so I said yes. And he had me read for the lead role, and I ended up getting it. So that's what awesome. Got me into acting.
So in high school, any particular play you were in high school that you want to share?
You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I played Snoopy. You didn't know that?
That's the best part.
I know, and I got to dance and stuff. And Princess and the Pea. There was this introduction. I wasn't actually in the body of the play itself, but there's this introduction where the princess and a prince dance. I was the prince dancing with this real professional ballet dancer. She was a really lovely ballet dancer, so I just had to look macho, I guess. Oh gosh, there was a whole bunch. Just a bunch of high school plays. Yeah.
Very cool. We want to see you reprise your role as Snoopy at some point. But,
I would love that. That would be so much fun.
So Lance, what inspired you? What shows, movies, plays?
I also was an actor. I was like a middle school. I was in 2 plays in middle school, so I was kind of a ham as a child. I used to try to make everybody laugh in 8th and 5th grade or something, and they made me run around I didn't get to play football with my friends. I had to run around the thing as a punishment. The teacher would say, you got to take laps. So I became the only 5th grader to make the track team at the in the all school conference because I was so good at long distance running. Let's see. So my first real play was Guys and Dolls. I was Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls, and it's a great musical. If anyone's never seen it, it is one of the greatest American musicals, and it really holds up. I saw a production of it in London last year, and it was fantastic. And I had been taking acting. There was this acting camp in my school, my town, and I sort of did that every summer during high school, and I did a bunch. I did like 10 high school plays, and but I didn't know. I'm from California, and I didn't know anybody with a New York accent. I didn't know how to do a New York accent. So my Uncle Jack was from Brooklyn, and and I had the Mel Brooks 2013 album we did with Carl Reiner. So I did Nathan Detroit like Mel Brooks doing the 2,000-year-old man. And it worked. It totally worked. Like everything worked. All the jokes worked. And I was like, okay, that's how you do it. So then I thought that was that's what I was supposed to be doing. I'm just being a Mel Brooks impersonator. But luckily I got to do other stuff.
Well, I don't think you can go wrong with being a Mel Brooks impersonator. We did have a question back there.
Hi, thank you for taking the question. CG effects are so common now that I often wondered, like when you were doing The Last Starfighter, and it was like basically the first time something like that was done, what was the process like and how hard was it, if it was hard at all, to like wrap your head around what they were planning? Thank you.
The thing is, they didn't really know how it was going to look. That was the big problem. They're dealing with something. It's a very, very visual medium, obviously, and they don't know what it's going to look like. So most of the pressure was on them, meaning Nick, the director, and Gary, the producer, and John, the writer. So they were the ones that had to deal with it. We just they just say, oh yeah, and the ship's coming this way, and then it's going to blow up, or there's this one here. So we just had to imagine. It wasn't that difficult because we just had to imagine stuff happening, which is what you do on stage all the time. You go to center stage and you're supposed to watch a horse walk by or whatever. It's like we do that all the time. So it wasn't really that hard. They would have bang sticks, which would make lightning when stuff would blow up. So obviously it was something real that we'd react to. But a lot of actors make a big deal out of, well, I'm reacting to something that's not there, and it's not.
You're an
bad.
Actor.
Yeah, it's like on stage nothing is there. It's a bunch of people out in the audience, so it's.
And you've probably been reacting to things that weren't there since you were 5.
Yeah.
Pretending. I know for me, the scene where he lands in the starship, and they, like he said, they weren't even sure if they were going to use practical special effects, the traditional ones, or this newfangled CGI. And they had these guys creating these programs behind the scenes. I didn't have a clue that was happening. But when the starship, is that what it is called technically?
The Gunstar.
Gunstar. They built these legs, in the trailer park, and then they had this giant fan, and this is the desert, right? So they're blowing dirt and dust into your face, and you're like, oh God. And okay, it's landing, and Nick would say, okay, just look above the legs, and so you just had to imagine he didn't really even have a description of it aside from the physical legs that were sitting there. But he directed us like, okay, now he's coming down and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was really interesting. I didn't even find out about all the CGI stuff that was going on behind the scenes until the 25th anniversary of the movie, and they had them in a panel for a Q&A, and I was up there with them going, Oh, I didn't know that was going on the whole time.
I think the less they shared of their own terror, the better for us. I
Right.
mean, Nick was so great. He would just keep it growing, keep it positive, and just, do what we could do. But they really had no idea since they didn't know what it was going to be. It would just be like, effect sequence here. So like when we would do ADR, fixing the dialogue, I was watching it and all of a sudden there'd be no scene. And I go, what's that? And he goes, oh yeah, that's the CGI stuff. And I go, oh, what's happening? Well, we don't know yet. And so, they just pieced it together, and it was really a tribute to those guys. We're just
For sure. Because they were on a really tight time limit. And if they couldn't get it done within that time limit, they weren't going to use it. So, and even they were talking about how they wish they'd had more time because they couldn't get the detail that they really wanted, that they were working towards. But they had a computer that took up a whole room, it had less power than my watch here. Yeah. So it was quite a process from what I understand.
Yeah. And it was cool because the digital company was from where I'm from, which is the Santa Clara Valley, which is now called Silicon Valley. It's a derogatory term, actually. Those us natives... silicon is like this thing that they put in the boobs, it's like no, silicon is a phony thing, So, but yes, now it's called Silicon Valley. But it was from San Jose. Those guys are from San Jose. So that was my area.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure they were like, it's going to look great. It's going to look great.
Well, we didn't know. We just care about how are we,
So, any other questions? We got plenty of hands. Jeez, this can make my job easy.
Thank you both for being here today. So, thinking about all of the fun stuff that you got to do on this, and like you said, you aren't sure what it was going to look like at the end. Did you have a particular scene or a sequence that you really enjoyed filming and getting to work on? Like, do you have a highlight or a moment?
I think we might
chomping at the bit. I can see
I
it.
think we have the same one. We have the same one, I think.
Do we? We share the same one? It's at the lake? That where you're the beta unit at the lake?
Yes, but then after that, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
That whole sequence is good.
That whole sequence is fantastic. It has everything.
Except
it has
the kissing of her. That was really difficult. I had to prepare for hours.
Our hearts bleed for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, sense memory. Okay.
No, I mean, it did. It had everything. It had love. It had romance. It had action. It had drama. It had
green blood. It had green blood.
It had green blood. It had humor. And just everything about that scene for me was so much fun, including riding in the truck, and then I have to leap out before he crashes into the thing. That wasn't really me leaping out, but and then the dramatic end with the hair blowing in the wind, looking up to the stars, and I love you, Alex Rogan. And in the background, there's an explosion. It's beautiful, fantastic.
Yeah, and the argument. I like the argument right before I'm trying to get her in the truck. No, I'm trying to get her out of the truck. I'm like, don't come. I gotta go. Get in the truck and go. And just the overlapping of the dialogue and everything that we did, it just had such great energy, and I think that was the direction. I'm not sure. We just went with it, and it was like it was really, when you watch it, it's really fun. So.
How did you differentiate yourself acting as Alex and acting as Beta Alex?
Two things. One, hair. Beta did not know how to comb his hair, so Beta doesn't know what a comb is. So I just would stick my hair in front. You're like Mo from the Three Stooges or something, And the easy thing about, Alex had so many. Doing this, I sort of carried the plot, so I had to make every decision and every motivation really clear, so people would not go, hey, why are you doing that? So that was a real sort of roadmap that I had to sort of plot out. And Beta is like a blank slate. He's just, everything is new to him. Everything is completely, he has no idea what's going on. He's always in a state of total confusion, and that's what makes him funny. So that was easy. I imitated my friend. I always say F.J. Pratt, this guy I went to college with. He was this great comic actor, and that was his thing. He would always just be totally flummoxed about everything. And so I thought, okay, I'll just do FJ. Let's go. First it's Mel Brooks, then it's FJ.
Well, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Next question. We have a bunch.
Thank you both for being here. I'm going to break protocol and try to give 2 questions for each of you. Okay, Catherine, you survived the Canon group.
I did.
Yes, you did. So
Yeah.
my question is how was production with Lorimar from Canon? That's your question. And Lance, you mentioned musicals. What was it like working with Robert Preston?
So that was the very first movie that I did, where I was living in London and I was auditioning. It was this futuristic rock musical set in 1994. I guess we shot it in 79. But anyway, I would advise you all to have a look at this thing and
It's a really fine film.
But it was a Canon film, and also it was sort of in the genre of like Xanadu, when those kind of movies were playing, and actually the budget was like $5 million, and at that time that was fairly large. But the thing about this movie was Canon, they were trying to establish themselves. Menachem Golan and his cousin, Yoram Globus, were trying to establish themselves in the American market. And they thought this was the thing that was going to do that. And so they really put everything into it. I mean, we had the London Symphony Orchestra playing at one point. We had really terrific, Joss Ackland was in it, Vladek Sheybal was in it. Some really great, well, I don't know if you can consider it great music, but it was great. It was timely. For the time, it was good. We shot in Berlin. It was a big production. So the only thing that was, and because I was I was thinking of myself as a dancer, I didn't put like everything into this bucket of, oh, now I'm a movie star. So I was just kind of going with the flow and having a lot of fun doing it. The one thing I screwed up one time was we were shooting in Berlin before the wall was down. So this was West Berlin in the middle of East Germany. And it was kind of like this crazy, wild party place. And I didn't think I had to work the next day, this one day. So I went out with all the dancers and we were out all night long. And I sort of crawled back to the hotel at like 7 a.m. And the AD or PA or somebody was like, "Where have you been? You're late for your call." I'm like, "My call? I have a call this morning?" And I had to go onto the set. I hadn't had a wink of sleep. And Menachem, I was in makeup. He comes out, "You will never work in this business again." And he went off on this rant. And I was just like, mostly it just kind of scared me, but I wasn't like, oh, my career's over. I was like, oh, okay, I'll go back to dancing. But he was very much that way. He was either like a big sort of teddy bear or he was just like very, very passionate. Let me put it that way. And did you say compared to this, Starfighter or Lorimar? Yeah, night and day. This was just a lovely experience. And we're still really good friends, which is kind of like a sign, I think. Yeah. So sorry, that took a lot of time.
You want to know about the same thing or just Robert Preston?
Robert.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's a pretty short answer because we did a lot of night shoots and the speed of the film. I'm sure you've heard this before, but we had to bang it out in 38 days, and we got maybe 2 takes. We got 2, maybe 3, and so I'd been doing film acting for 2 years at that point, but I was the lead in the film, and it's like I really wanted everything to be perfect, and I kept thinking that all directors are like, okay, now on take 37, maybe do it a little bit different. I was kind of prepared for that, and it was like you got to get it after take 2. If you don't have it after take 2 and you're still in focus, you've got to live with it. So it freaked me out because I wanted everything to be perfect. So I would have to rehearse in order for it to be perfect so that we do it without speaking. So I'd knock on Press's door at like 3 o'clock in the morning because they were all night shoots, and he's in there, and I say, "Press, can we go through the scene? Is that all right?" "Yeah, kid, I'm fine." He comes out, puts his 4th, Chesterfield in his mouth, and he's just this tough guy, just like this really, "I'm a theater actor, kid. What are you talking about?" And just we just went through it, and he had his timing, he had his thing down and everything, and we got up, 2 takes, boom. I would still try to go, oh, maybe it's kind of, Nick's like, we got to go, man, we got to go. So that was the most stress for me, is doing 2 takes, but that's the way it was. Lorimar's basically a TV production company, and so that's what they do. But it was, really, it was great. It's amazing we did it in 38 days plus reshoots. I think we had 10 days of reshoots.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I saw some more hands.
Hi. Thank you for the movie, obviously. I know you said yesterday at the Night of the Comet panel that they didn't actually have a game for you to play while you were playing the game, which ended up being Tempest, my personal favorite game. Did they have a game or something on the screen for you to play during your scenes with the arcade cabinet? And also, do you think Reggie could have beaten Alex's high score?
Ooh. Who's Reggie?
Oh, what?
Is that your character?
In Night of the
Character name in Night of the
Comet.
Comet.
Because the whole beginning of the film is
Okay,
like
Reggie,
they have
okay, like Regina.
Regina.
Okay.
That's right.
Not the guy with the dark hair from the Archies.
No. No. Totally, of course.
What
Been me up there in outer space, damn it.
pushed me out of the chair.
Yeah.
Bye, Major Tom. Yeah, it was just they just mocked up a they didn't mock it up, but it was a video pattern of somebody playing the game. Like they imagined somebody playing the game, hitting the command unit and knocking out those things, and they just designed a tape, and it was just on a loop. I think it might have been a VHS tape, and it was just on a loop on a screen monitor in the thing. And I sort of figured out, okay, well, my right hand gun is going here, so I went through it a bunch of times and tried to memorize and sort of sync up my shooting to the result. It's like syncing up the question to the answer in a way, that was it. It didn't take long because we did so many takes. I pretty much had the timing down, and and sometimes they cut to somebody else. They cut to my stand-in a few times, and he's got like big hairy hands, and he was like 10 years older than me. And I was like, that's not me, but I mean, this guy had these big old. This is kind of funny.
Awesome. We have we have a question back there, a question here, a question, and one there. So plenty.
Lance, for a lot of us, I think you're on the level of Mark Hamill and Chris Pratt as far as what we as little boys, what we as little boys wanted to grow up to be. But the thing that they had was franchise, and that's what The Last Starfighter didn't have. In your ruminations of being an actor, do you take Alex forward? Do you think about, and Catherine, you can answer the question too, if Maggie had particular interest or any other character that you've been. We all thought about where that could go.
Pretty much every movie had some kind of cliffhanger to kind of those kind of movies. There was always some cliffhanger, and this one was, Zor getting into the little pod and taking off. And it's sort of, honestly, at the time, it was like, yeah, if they're going to make another one, that's what they're going to hitch on to. It wasn't that, oh my God, there's going to be another one. We didn't necessarily think of that because it was a fairly common thing to do stuff like that at that time. There was no real closure. You know what I mean? It was kind of like those freeze frames at the end of a lot of those 80s movies that always ends in a freeze frame. It's about as common as that. And so I didn't really think about it until I realized how many people just really loved the movie. And I was like, wow, this really should have had a sequel. That's crazy. As far as I knew, nothing was being done about it. There was this whole thing with the rights and everything. So I never knew. So I sort of outlined my own sequel because I didn't know if anybody was doing anything. And I just, for the fun of it, I wrote my own script and not knowing that I didn't have the rights, but might as well. I can write a script in my spare time. It's fun, I think it's fun. So I just did, and then years later, I ran into John at this weird thing. I did this this is kind of
John
a long
Betchell,
answer.
who wrote
John
the
Betchell. I did this musical called $1 Million Quartet out in New York. Oh, thank you. And very different than The Last Starfighter. And we were taken up to Seattle, Washington, and it was a festival of about 5 new musicals. Ours, a few others, and Last Starfighter the musical. So I show up, and I was like, this is crazy. So I go, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I got my guitar, I'm playing Johnny Cash, so I got my guitar. And I go in and I went into the room, the rehearsal room for The Last Starfighter, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be here, But so
I don't think I knew you did that, actually. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
I mean, it's just, So, but it was really fun to see them. Anyway, so Jonathan shows up for that, and I'm like, I sat in back of him, I'm like, hey, Jonathan, how you doing? He's like, Lance, what are you doing here? So I asked him about the sequel. He's like, yeah, it looks like, I'm going to be able to get the rights. I've been working, trying to get it rights. And it still took another, 3 or 4 years to really, really, really nail it down. So that was the first time I heard of that. And it's still in the works. It's still, they have something. They just want to, they know everybody wants to see it. He knows everybody wants to see it. But it's a difficult decision about getting, you got to get the right director, you got to get the right people, since the movie is it does have a really particular kind of sentiment, and you got to kind of have the right chemistry of people to do that. So, I'm talking about in the directing. We would do it if they're going to do it, but
a heartbeat. And it'd be great to be a part of.
And they're not going to use my script. I was going to say to John, hey John, he's like, don't tell me anything. You can't tell me anything because.
Well, Nick Castle has said he's hopeful that it will happen eventually. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
I hope so.
So we have some more questions. Awesome.
Actually, this is sort of 2 questions. One, what was it like working with some Dan or I hope I'm saying it right, Dan or
Hurley.
Yeah, yes. What was it like working with him? And 2, did you film? What was it like when this film and Tron came out at the same time? Did they have a lot of similarities between each other?
Well, from what I could tell about Tron, I didn't really see Tron for a long time, and I was told that was the first time they ever used this kind of technology. And what I noticed about that was that it was mostly in the layout, in the backgrounds, and that the people, I didn't notice any necessary. I could be wrong, but I didn't notice a lot of moving, individually articulated characters. It was mostly environments. So it was a video game environment, and I think they might have placed a person in there, and that's the actual person. Yeah, live action inside that. So that's very different than a moving gun star and something blowing up and, all the stuff that they did end up doing. So ours was just more advanced, and, so I didn't worry about it at the time, again, because I wasn't that interested, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what computer graphics were. Nobody really did. So, and what was the second part? Dan. Oh, Dan. It's so cool because he was in Robinson Crusoe. He's this British, trained actor. He's actually Irish, but he's, he's got that great voice, that great kind of, very theatrical kind of Shakespearean kind of voice. And, he really enjoyed how wacky that Grigg was. He made up all these weird little random things to do that he just added to the character, and it's almost like a computer glitch or something. His behavior would sort of reflect some kind of random information coming in. So he made all that. He mapped this whole thing out, which I thought was kind of a cool way of creating an alien,
But also what was so cool is that he was wearing like an inch thick of rubber. Yeah. And so he had to figure out a way, which I think is what you're talking about, of how to make this character alive and real, because it could have been just like this rubber-faced person. But he figured out so many, from what I understand, he spent a lot of time like staring at himself in the mirror and figuring out how to work his mouth, how to work his eyes. And like when he laughs, he does this whole thing with his shoulders. And he really, I think it's brilliant, because it's sort of like Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's. He's dead, but you can't take your eyes off him because he's got, but it's the same sort of thing. It could have been really bland, but he created this character under all this rubber, which is so kind of neat, really cool.
And he's very officious, so it's odd that he's wacky and he does this, woohoo, he's doing all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. I think we had a gentleman back there who's been waiting a while.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I appreciate every bit of the time that you're spending with us. When I watched The Last Starfighter as a kid, what drew me in was Alex playing the game. Were you an arcade guy when you were young?
I was, but when I was a kid, pinball was the thing. So
ain't nothing wrong with that.
So I liked playing pinball, but I wasn't a pinball wizard. I was not Tom. I wasn't Tommy. I was. So it's like, to me, it was expensive. It was a quarter every time you have a game, and 8 quarters, that's $2. That's lunch. I wasn't able to do it enough to really get good at it. And then when video games came out, it was Pong.
And Pac-Man. Pong and Pac-Man.
Pac-Man, and I had a friend, like my best friend Tom. He was really good at Pac-Man. He's like one of those guys that wires games really quick, and he'd spend his last quarter on it, and get really good at Pac-Man. But I wasn't that guy. So, and again, lack of funds prevented me from becoming a video game addict.
And Tom was very hungry all the time.
Pardon?
Tom was very hungry all the time.
Yeah. No. So I was not a gamer really. And then when big video games came out, I was so behind the times. I just was like, well, let him go watch The Last Starfighter.
Okay, next one. I think there's someone up here, and then we'll come back over here.
Hi. First, a comment. I can't be the only person who thought that Greg was a rock monster instead of a lizard. He looked like Thing from Fantastic Four. That's what I thought he was.
Greg was in Starfighter, right? Yeah.
Also, Catherine, how about you with the video games?
I know. I'm pretty much in the same boat as Lance here. I did enjoy some Pong in my day and some Pac-Man, but when we shot Night of the Comet, the opening scene is me playing this game and all this other stuff, but there was really nothing on the screen. And the director was just telling me what to do, and he shot my feet a lot and things like that. I think he had a thing for feet, because I feel like my feet were in a lot of close-ups. Just my feet.
I didn't realize Quentin Tarantino was...
Maybe that's where Quentin Tarantino came up with it. I don't know. At any rate, I really was in the same boat as Lance.
Okay, and then my other question. Speaking of seeing nothing on the screen, those scenes where Lois was looking at the Playboys, was he actually looking at anything?
Absolutely. There was no like. Yeah, it was a different time. There was no picketing or anything.
Well, there's no magazines now anymore, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Diarrhea.
Yeah.
His mom was on the set, though, so
yeah.
He was being monitored to a certain degree. I have to say,
my best friend, when I was about his age, he had centerfolds all over his room. Actually, I was about 10, maybe. Lucas, he was about 9. I was about 10, So he had blacklight posters, and he had this was 1970, so it's not the way it would become. It was.
Okay, we have a couple over here, and someone trying to break in, but the locks are holding.
Oh, thanks. First of all, guys, I just want to say you look fantastic. So thank you. Years have been kind to you. It's been great.
Move to your right.
Yes. So, Catherine, yesterday I was here at the tail end, so I got to hear all the stuff. And Lance, you just already told about how Jonathan Betchwell got the rights back and all that, took you guys out, explained the pitch. We've seen the concept art for this sequel, the next generation Gunstars, all that. Did he give you any more details as like what he would want to do with this? Like, I have my own ideas about like what might have happened, Alex and Maggie move to Rylos. They start their family. Alex becomes like rebuilds the Starfighter program. Lewis joins the Starfighters. The Cult of Zor is still a thing, and all that. But like, what did Jonathan say or anything like that? Not to get anybody excited about what'll happen, but
I never spoke to Jonathan directly. I mean, there has been so many conversations about the sequel. We met with Nick one time, 15 years ago or something. He took us for lunch. He's like,
oh no, I think Nick and John both. I think, was that right?
I think it was just Nick. I feel like I keep stepping on somebody's foot, but it's not. Okay. But there's so many different ways that this could go. Like you say, I mean, it could be in outer space. It could be, I don't know. They could have, I don't know what. They could have done so many things. But I think it would be very cool for, the next generation to take over somehow. Hopefully it'll be before we're their grandparents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so it's all, there's so many different concepts that could be done, but I don't know exactly where they're going.
I'd like to see them, like, maybe there are more starfighters from Earth, and like how would that program still work in this day and age?
Yeah.
The thing is, though, like, we've lost a lot of the actors. Of course, Robert Preston is gone. Dan O'Harley's gone. I learned just recently that Norman Snow, who played Zor, passed away a couple of years ago. So we need to get on this thing before we go. But in answer, in response to somebody asking, like, was there ever like an actual video game? Somebody actually made a working Starfighter game.
Yes.
This is an outfit called Rogue Synapse. If you want to look at roguesynapse.com, they actually made a functional Starfighter game. It's still there. You can download it and play it. Yes. Cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Right, thank you.
All right. We have this gentleman over here.
Hey, Lance. Hey, Catherine.
Hi.
Question. I was curious about with Starfighter. What was the audition process like? Did you guys get a chance to read the script? Did you kind of have an idea of what it was versus what it actually became like once it was finished? And did you guys get a chance to like maybe read together or audition together or anything? And my second question too is for you, Lance. What was your experience working on Halloween 2? Did you get a chance to interact with Jamie Lee Curtis or Donald Pleasance or anything like that?
That's a long story. Let me answer the first one. I'll answer what we got. It was originally called Centauri's Recruit. I read it and I thought it was really, really charming, and it reminded me of a lot of the comic. There was a whole subgenre of comic sci-fi things coming around that time. And I actually had friends from college that were writing these kind of things. And it just had this real charming, offbeat kind of quality. It wasn't dead serious like a lot of science fiction is. And it was a little tongue-in-cheek about a lot of stuff, and it was involving real people, as opposed to a galaxy long ago, far away. It's like that's its own world. This is the real world and another world, and it's the sort of interaction between the two. So I really thought it was charming, and I went and read for it, and I didn't hear from anybody. I thought I thought it was pretty good, and I didn't hear anything, and then I went again for like 3 months later, which is very unusual. And it was you and two other actresses and me and two other actors. And those were the finalists.
And we got to read together. Yeah. Yes.
Oh my. Eventually we did. Yeah.
No, it was at the callback, wasn't it? Well, yes. We they put us together, and I remember you were very serious about okay, let's run these lines a little. We walked out of the office and ran the lines and everything, which was great. And my memory of it is they called us into the office. It was with Nick and the producers and everything, and they wanted us to sort of improvise like some sort of a romantic thing at the lake, lying down. I remember lying down in the office and looking up at the stars and talking about stars. We didn't have to do anything physical or anything like that. Ew. But no, it was really, I mean, not that I feel that way about what we did.
You didn't have to do anything physical in front of a
comedy team.
Bunch of people.
No, I didn't know. I mean, it was just very sweet is my point, because it would have been a little creepy to rolling around making out in front of the director and producer and stuff. But yeah, and so yes, and we ended up doing it together. So that was really so cool.
There was a good like chemistry, and I remember they said it's weird. They kind of look alike. They said let's cast the kids that look alike.
Yeah, but also I think there was something about the fact that we weren't as well known as like the Brat Pack.
Yeah.
You know, and those were some of the kids that were auditioning as well, and they liked the idea that we weren't that well known and would be sort of put in a slot. You know, so that worked for us, being unworking actors.
And speaking of Halloween 2, this is something that I found out watching the special features, because Nick never told me this. But when I was in Halloween 2, he's good friends with John Carpenter. John Carpenter did the Halloween series, obviously. And he was in the editing room with John, and John was cutting, looking through, and Nick's looking at the moviola, you know, that they were using or whatever. And Nick's like, hey, who's that guy? You know, see me running down the hall, you know. I'm like, whatever I was, 6'1", 150 or whatever I was. He was that skinny guy running down the hall. And John told him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I have a project that he'd be good for." I never knew this. He never told me this. So I find out again 25 years later with the special features, and so I kind of had a leg up because he just thought of me right away just from seeing Halloween 2, and I never thought Halloween 2 would ever necessarily lead to anything other than other horror movies. So I was kind of like, "Wow, I'm happy to hear that."
Did you work with Jamie Lee Curtis?
Oh, yeah. I have I mean, it was the first thing I ever did, so it was a much more fresh experience. And I worked for 5 weeks, and all night shoots, and I was in character the whole time. So I was like, you know, all the actors of my group, my generation, were always like, oh yeah, you got to be in character the whole time. The whole 12 hours you're on the set, you got to be scared to death, you know. And so that's, you know, when you're 20, you have that kind of energy, and so that's the way I was, you know. And I'd be I'm sure you've heard this. I'd be running into the cameras, I'd go out of frame, and they'd be, Lance, stay in the frame. You're not going to be in the movie if you don't stay in the frame. And Jamie Curtis, best thing I can say about Jamie Curtis is she's not Laurie Strode. She's like the opposite of Laurie Strode. So she's this big, huge personality, really gregarious and really generous and really just big, and just it makes her really fun to be around. And Laurie's this really introverted, serious person, you know. So it's amazing. But Jamie's really serious about working, but it's funny that her personality is so radically different.
Well, you guys have been more than generous with your time. Thank you so much. Please give both of them a huge round of applause. Visit them at their tables. They have probably more stories they can tell.
Hi, this is Michael Shanks, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The fate of the universe may depend on it. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom.